Amogha,
Like many programs get executed at once
okay,
concurrently.
that is the OS. When you're dealing with data, you probably dealt with database. What does concurrent transaction means in terms of database?
Like when multiple users are working on the same thing,
Mhm.
so the updates must be concurrently updated.
How do you deal with that? What mechanism you do to make sure that there are no conflicts?
For example, if there is 200 deduction in one's account, that
Mhm.
2000, 2000 or 200, 2000 must be reflected in the other account as well immediately.
Mhm. Now you're talking of integrity constraints or consistency,
Yeah, the
uh,
transaction
which,
should either process or
which is different from concurrency. I'm not deducting something from 200. That doesn't mean it has to go to other account. I mean, yes, this account should be updated. Let's say I'm keeping a counter. I'm just simply updating it. There may not be any other place. Do we need concurrency control if you're doing only read? Kishore,
Uh,
no.
Sir, only for writing it has to be concurrent, I feel.
so if let's say two people are writing and three people are reading,
Yes, sir.
do we still need concurrency for guys who are reading, or do we need concurrency only for people who are writing?
Sir, reading it is like it doesn't need concurrency, sir. Two people can read, and if three people are writing, then it has to be like concurrent.
So, have you heard about dirty reads?
Uh, I'm not sure about it, sir.
Data. So, depends on if we're talking of dirty read, possibly yes. Otherwise, no, you need. So, somebody is updating but are not committed transaction. So, unless I committed, then you can't read unless you happen to execute before me. So,
Yes, sir.
transaction has to be scheduled that you get basically consistent view irrespective of whether how things are getting executed. You're executing in isolation and you think you're only a lone guy working on it, and so it causes a conflict. And the way you achieve concurrency is either you put locks or you put some transaction ordering, and if access violates that, then you probably abort the transaction.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, now in our LGFS case, we do not have any update. We have only append. So what would concurrency mean? Do you really need concurrency access there, control? Let's say I and HOD sends two mails to all of you guys. Some of you would receive first mail from me and some would receive first mail from Rekha, but both of you are receiving mails from both me and Dr. Rekha. Assuming both of us send you at the same time, do we still need to apply some kind of concurrency? Yeah, anyone? Divya?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand the question?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
I said, I and Dr. Rekha sends mails. I send one email. Dr. Rekha sends another email. We send at the same time to the entire class. Now, some of you might receive first from me, some of you received first from Rekha, but both of you received email from both of us. Do we really need to worry about concurrency when mail comes to your inbox?
Sir, can you repeat the question again? Your voice was cut off while you were.
Can somebody else repeat the question? Indrasena, could you understand the question?
Yes, sir.
Can you repeat?
If Rekha ma'am and Ram sir send a mail uh, mail to you at some point of time, say at same time,
Yeah.
then how will the concurrency come into existence over there? Like, would it really affect?
Yeah.
I don't think it will affect, sir. I think I'll receive both the emails.
Then both email would be received. So does
Yes.
it really matter? Do we need to put some concurrency control in the picture?
No, I don't think so.
So,
Yes,
because
yes, sorry. Yeah, concurrency should be existing. Sorry.
why? How will that matter?
Because both the emails are being sent at the same time, so the server needs to forward both the emails.
Yeah, but it comes to your inbox, whether you mail receive from Rekha first or receive email from Ram first, does it matter to your inbox?
No, I don't think it matters to the inbox as long as.
Because email doesn't have an update, it is only append. It keeps get appending to your inbox. So
Yes.
it doesn't really matter. And that is what we say. All that we're saying is, if I'm sending, let's say, multi-part email, you get, now you can probably go to mute because I think there's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you can probably put mute yourself. So that is what we say. We are looking at relaxed concurrency, that we are not looking at update. And since we're only doing an append, so you have to make sure that data is written. But as far as when you write mails, as long as the order is there, doesn't matter what time you receive, could you still maintain it. There's no conflict that happens. That is what the HDFS would support. Of course, we can support many simultaneous users. Even the HDFS support writing one user at a time to one file. Multiple users can write different files, but to one file, only one user at a time. That's what it means. And write users only append only mode. We don't do random writes. And write basically works more like a stream, like continuous flow. You keep appending it or even reading, you keep reading sequentially, and that is what HDFS gives you. The entire HDFS design is based on Google file system, which you can access, or you can search for Google file system. And they basically designed it, and HDFS takes a lot of concepts from there. So even though GFS is not part of a syllabus, but I'll briefly run down, that will help you understand how really HDFS works. So any DFS distributed file system, whether it's Google file system, whether it is Hadoop distributed file system, or you have a Amazon S3, again the storage, which is a file system, all of the DFS file systems, design goals are scalability, reliability, performance, and availability. Anyone like to differentiate and say what the difference is? Maybe Akshata. What does scalability mean? Afreen. When I take your name, you guys should at least respond.
Yes, sir.
So what does the scalability mean? And within your term, scalability, reliability, performance, and availability. We end up choosing interchangeably, but each has a different meaning. So what does the scalability mean? for our distributed file system. Kirti, Lakshmi,
Yes, so scalability in terms of file system, if the file
distributed
system
file
will be,
system, yeah.
yeah, it will be able to support maybe thousands of nodes when we consider a cluster basically.
Yeah. So if you write more data, so basically distributed file, I can support any large file size. So my file grows from, let's say, terabytes to petabyte, and one system can't support that many size. I can deploy more node in the cluster. So it almost gives me linear scalability. Good. What does reliability mean?
I'm not sure about it, sir. Maybe in terms of accuracy.
What do you mean accuracy? It would be precise. Can you define it? Are you referring to precision? Are you referring to something else?
Yes, sir, with reference to precision itself.
So you mean to say if I'm writing data 5.7536, as long as it gives me 3-digit precision, 5.753, I'm okay? No, it is not with accuracy.
Okay, sir.
So what does reliability mean? Lavanya? Anup?
Yes, sir.
What does reliability mean?
Maybe compatible.
In what sense? Can you give an example?
Like some system, like for a few files, it may be compatible.
Meaning what?
Not sure, sir.
That's it. Anusa? Bhavesh? Chinna? Are you guys there or simply signed in and doing something else?
So can I try?
Yeah, please.
So maybe with respect to replication of data within the nodes, with respect to replication, is it possible?
Can you elaborate by example? Let's say you deposit 100 rupees in the bank.
Yes, sir.
And after you get a confirmation, your bank system crashes.
Okay.
Are you sure that your 100 rupees is still there in the account?
Yes, sir. It is possible if that replication happens, which means reliability in terms of it.
So reliability means one system is confirmed, data would not be corrupted and data would be available to you. As long as some replication, that basically makes you availability. Reliability means once data is there, it is confirmed, and then data would not be lost. Okay. Availability would refer to in terms of, because of replication, if one system goes down, it will be available, some other system will have access. Okay. There's a difference between the two.
Yes, sir.
What is performance would mean? Chandana? Darshan? Common terms we're studying, you should be able to explain.
Hello?
Yeah. Tell me. Dikshita or Deepika?
Sir, I couldn't hear the second word. Performance. What?
Yeah, performance, yeah. What is the
Oh,
meaning of performance when you refer to, it's a performance is a design goal for DFS? What does that mean?
I think whatever it is supposed to do, it does it perfectly without crashing. So with the system being reliable and
So that's a reliable, that is not performance.
uh,
Basically, when you have multiple people accessing on high load, it should still be able to deliver and shouldn't simply say response becomes too low. So even the large number of users, large amount of data, system should continue to work at before irrespective of number of users without degrading response time. That's basically the performance would primarily mean. Now we have different distributed file systems. You have a DFS, you have a GFS, but all these distributed systems basically assume that component failure, any component, server, a disk, or CPU would fail, and things would continue to work. So we just quickly look at GFS. As I said, though even though it's not part of the course, but since SDFS takes the concept from here, so I'll quickly go over, and then we go into the SDFS part. So basically, GFS is designed to work with commodity hardware. Commodity hardware would mean it is available off the shelf anywhere. For example, if I were to give you an example, if you want to buy a crocin or paracetamol, you can go to any medical shop and buy it and get it easily. But if you were to buy remdesivir injection for COVID, it may not get easily available. You have to probably struggle and find specific orders or ventilators. So it's not a commodity hardware that you can get from anywhere. Whereas paracetamol, crocin, cough syrup, they're commodity medicines. So commodity hardware means you ask any vendor, they'll give you the servers with hardware stuff and you are done. And so cheap, easily available. And when you have a large number of commodity servers, some or the other server would fail. It could be disk failure, it could be memory failure, it could be disk crashing, it could be network going bad. Any component could fail, basically saying that particular hardware would, out of 1,000 machines, 2, 3, 4, 5 may not work. But as a whole, DFS should be available to you to make use of it. And that means if things crash, DFS has to have a built-in support for monitoring, fault detection, recovery, and so on and so forth. Other thing DFS is designed is to work with large file sizes, maybe terabytes, petabytes of that kind. So less number of files, but files of large sizes, compared to large number of files with a small file size. So primarily the DFS are designed for a large file system, and that's what they support. Large number of small files, it becomes difficult. I mean, you'll not get the right performance. So GFS is designed to give you good performance when you have a large file sizes and do sequential reading. That's what it's designed for. So design assumptions of GFS is that you have a commodity hardware. Any component can fail, and if some components fail, GFS system needs to recover. And as a user, it should be remain transparent how things are working. And again, it's a large number of files. The kind of workload GFS designed to support is large streaming reads. Streaming meaning continuous reading sequentially. That's the meaning of streaming. Like water flow, you get continuous stream of drops. Same way you're doing continuous stream of bytes you are reading in a large way, and that's what you do. If you're doing a small random read, 100 bytes from here and 100 bytes from somewhere else, it will be highly inefficient because it's designed to serve you large reads or for a sequential read and not for random reads. Same is true for write, and multiple concurrent appends could happen to the same file. That doesn't matter. but in HDFS we'll see it supports only probably one write. We'll look at the assumptions. Basically, it is read the paper is about 15-page paper. It will be good to read to get an idea. Once you read that paper, it will become a lot more easier for you to appreciate and understand how HDFS is designed. What it ensures is that there is atomicity for write. When two people append, it can still work. Ordering may have to be decided, but that should still be fun. GFS is designed for high bandwidth rather than the low latency. And we would like to differentiate between high bandwidth versus latency. Ganesh GB or Ganesh M. Why does high bandwidth is important for distributed file system versus the latency? Harshita, Indrasena.
Maybe because in Hadoop, in the sense, it's nothing but big data analytics.
Right.
So we'll be dealing with large amount of data.
So can you define what is the meaning of, what is the difference between bandwidth and latency?
Bandwidth is nothing but number of data which we can transfer to something else.
Yeah, size of data.
Yes.
The size of data, yeah.
Yes.
And latency?
And latency is, yeah, with what delay is it transferring from the source to the destination?
Correct. So as an example, I could probably say, let's say I need to write 1 terabyte of file. Now I could write in terms of 1 kilo block, or I can write in terms of 1 megabyte block. Latency would mean how much time it takes me to write and get a response. Now, if I can write 1 megabyte or 100 megabyte at a time, that gives high bandwidth. But if I can write only 10 kilobyte at a time, that becomes low bandwidth. So amount of data in one go which you can transfer refers to bandwidth. Latency is the time it takes to complete. So for the distributed file systems, high bandwidth is more important than the latency because you're dealing with large amount of data. So looking at a generic architecture, you basically would have a master server and you have a lot of client servers or data servers. Master server deals only with namespace. Master server does not store any data per se. It stores only metadata, information about which file is stored where. So client will talk to the master server, say I want to write this file. Master server would give a response back, okay, write to this data server X, data server Y, the application would be on Z and so on and so forth. And once you get the data, client would access and write to those. And that's the basic architecture of GFS. We can look at the way the workflow would happen. Client needs to write or read whatever. Client will talk to the master, say I want to write this file of this size. Master will respond, these are the data servers with respect to a replica where you can write. Then the client pushes the data to all those servers where data is to be written in a replicated mode. Now it can push to one and others can push to the others, or it can put access directly and send to all those three replicas, depending on the network connectivity. So once it pushes, data is received. Once data is received by all these servers, they confirm data has been received. Then client talks to primary, say perform a write. Primary talks to all these secondary replica nodes, say write, and once data is returned, they confirm to the primary, secondary, the data is written. Primary responds back to the client saying data is written, and that's the way basically GFS works. HDFS is basically the same concept, and we look at those, and that is what we'll move to now HDFS. So from component perspective, HDFS has several components that constitutes HDFS or Hadoop distributed file system. One is the replication, which we'll look at shortly. How does replication occurs? We'll look at safe mode, that basically when HDFS starts, that is when safe mode is. That means you cannot do any update or write during that time. Track awareness, how data is to be written, called locality of data. We'll discuss very briefly. High availability, if particular name node crashes, then we have kind of name nodes. We'll look at those. Different name nodes or the different points like master server. Name node basically meaning master server, where client accesses. Can there be multiple name nodes for different file systems? That's the meaning of name node federation. We'll look at checkpointing and backup, same as snapshots. And then something called NFS gateway. Have you heard about NFS, network file system? Anyone? You probably use it without knowing it in a way. Like when you do cloud drive, let's say using OneDrive, Google Drive, and it appears as a local drive jet to you, you can simply copy the file to your jet drive, which actually happens to be Google Drive or Amazon Cloud or Microsoft Cloud, but appears local file system. So remote file system accessing on your network, but appears as a local file system to your machine, is basically supported by something called network NFS protocol, network file system. There are other one, but NFS is typically used in Linux, the Unix framework, and HDFS can work on NFS file system. So HDFS has different node types, primarily called name node. Name node could be again three kinds: name node, secondary name node, and slave node or standby node. We'll look at that, and data node where actual data is stored. So name node only maintains metadata. That means which file is distributed across which data nodes and where the replication factors are. The name node does not keep the actual data. And this is done for both writing and reading. And name node, as I said, does not store any data on itself. It only maintains information about which data blocks are written on which data nodes, and data block is replicated on which node data is replicated. So basically, master node, a name node, we call it, manages file system namespace. That means the file names and the blocks distribution, but not the actual data. On an actual server, when you deploy singly, same node could be a data node as well as name node. But from functionality perspective, name node manages only data. It's called the metadata of the file or the namespace, but not the actual data. Whereas slave node, also called data nodes, that's where the actual data is stored, and data is always stored in terms of slices or blocks. As we said, well, let's say we are storing data in 64 megabyte block. So if you have file size of, let's say, 66 megabyte, so 64 block would be first and 2 megabyte would be second block. So data is physically split into the actual block sizes and not the logical record. Let's say I'm keeping a text file, and at the 64 megablock boundary, my text file is basically each line is a record. Let's say I'm writing a document, each line is a record. So half of the line could go to one data node, half could go to another, because we're splitting data nodes at the physical boundary. But when you look at the processing, we probably process in terms of logical record boundaries, but storage-wise, it is physical block, the actual block size, whatever we maintain. In terms of name node cluster, we have a name node, which is basically master node which client access with for namespace. We have a data node where the data is written, and with secondary name node. Secondary node is not a backup node. It is not for high availability. Secondary node is to efficiently help managing the metadata, which we'll look at just now short while. So let's look at how does, having studied GFS, how does HDFS node works in actual deployment. So you have a name node which makes use of number of data node. Now clients wants to write some file. It communicates with name node, say I want to write this file of this size. The name nodes knows which data nodes are available, where space is. So it identifies the data nodes and tells the client, use these data node 1 and data node 3, and then client will communicate to those data nodes and write respective blocks. And with the replication, it will also write with respect to the application respective nodes. Another client comes, want to read something. It again talks to name node, says, I want to read this file. Name node identifies which data nodes are available and where this data is available. It identifies response to the client, say use this data node 2, data node 3, and then client will get the data from the respective data nodes. And that is how basically the write and read occurs in a LDFS mechanism. How it happens in terms of block replication, and we look at secondary name node. As I said, secondary name node only deals with metadata efficient management and has nothing to do with backup. If name node goes down, secondary name node does not take over. So understand the difference, and we'll talk about high availability backup, how does backup works. So in terms of our block replication, consider again this diagram is taken from the book. Only thing I've done is the animation part. Consider a file which has 5 blocks to be written, and we have about 8 data nodes which has to be written with a replication factor of 3. That means block 1 will be written in 3 data nodes, block 2 would be written in 3 data nodes, and they could be written differently. So block 1 could go to node 1 to node 1, node 4, node 7. Block 2 can go to node 5, 6, and 8. Block 3 can go to node 1, 2, and 3. Block 4 can go to node 2, node 7, node 8, and block 5 go to node 3, 5, and maybe node 6. So depending on, so you'll see each block is replicated 3 times, is distributed, and that just depends. So distribution mechanism is try to be fair so that almost each node, depending on disk availability and size, is distributed accordingly. So this depiction shows you a replication factor of 3. Typically, replication factor keep an even number so that if it comes to majority decision, it always works better. Now we look at the other feature which says safe mode. Safe mode basically means when my system starts or when LDFS starts, it starts with a safe mode. That means during this time, like when a machine boots up, it boots up in a safe mode, read-only mode. You can't write or delete or block anything into the file system. Once it's ready, then you can do that. In this safe mode, it does basically construct the entire file system state from the last when it was shut down. So it maintains a file called fsimage, which basically maintains metadata about all the files, which is blocks and where the data is distributed, which blocks are written where with respect to the replication factor. After it loads, you may have a lot of other operations done. So once your LDFS starts running, to do a lot of write operations, they'll be written different blocks. Those writes are not added to fsimage directly. They're always written as an edit log. And when those edit logs are there at the startup time, the name node will read the fsimage and then read the edit logs and merge into memory and get a consistent view of all the data blocks available with all the data nodes. And once the data node registers, at least make sure that one copy of data is available, it is ready to serve, and that is when it permits clients to read and write the operations. Typically, when a client writes, the SDFS tries to honor what is called locality of data. That means write data to the nearest so that you can save on the bandwidth. And it supports 3 kinds of locality. One is locally on the machine. So if data not directly connected, write it on the same machine, much better off, or write it on data node which is in the same rack. You've got nodes on the same rack, rack meaning physical, vertical, where you can keep number of servers. And so connectivity on the rack with wired is a rack backbone, which is a very high connectivity. So we prefer to write data on the rack, and if no space available server on the same rack, then you can write onto different rack. So if we're doing it, let's say replication a factor of 3 to make sure data remains available, you probably do 2 writes on the same rack, and one data node would be on the another rack. And that is what, so it makes use of, so as a user, you are transparent to how many rack which is distributed, but SDF is aware of rack information and makes use of it to provide you good access, the distributed load, and basically availability. Because any rack fails, data should be available to other racks. You do not write all 3 blocks replication on the same rack, because then you're jeopardizing the availability part of it. If name node crashes, you like to make sure that there's a standby node that is available, and that is called high availability, because if a single name node which fails, my entire HDFS cluster could be down. So one way to do that is put redundant power supplies, other factors, but still my CPU could crash or my file system could crash. So that means I need to have a standby node which can take over in case of my main name node crashes and not becomes available. So this is given by what is called a name node HS service or high availability service. That means you need to have at least 2 or main name nodes. Only one of the name node would be in active state and other would be in a standby mode. The active name node is available for all HDFS operations and remaining name nodes remain in standby mode, and they basically maintain enough information that if main node crashes, then one of the standby node become active and become the name node. In terms of high availability design of name node, so you have an active name node, you have a standby name node, there could be more than one standby name node, you have a data nodes, and you have a journal nodes which basically maintains your edit logs. So all the data nodes, when things are written, they report to both, when they write, they report to both active name node and the standby name node. But to write the data, they get the command or information only from the active node. Only active node will tell which data nodes to be used for writing this. But once it is written, the reporting would happen to both, and they basically write any data is updated is written into journal nodes, and you typically keep an odd number of journal nodes, at least 3 or more. And this journal node basically maintains edit logs. And the journal nodes update the standby node, and they keep on syncing so that in case name node crashes, the standby node could take over. So basically you need 3 or more separate journal node for edit log, and they're written by majority, because but more than half is confirmed, that means edit log is confirmed, then write is available. Other writes could happen later, but as long as majority of journal nodes can confirm the write, that means write is successful and communicated to the client. And this topology, 3 name node supports 1 journal node failure, because 2 can continue to write. And if active name node fails, the standby nodes will take over. And the way it works is, it has its own FS image, it reads all the edit ROMs from the remaining name node. And once you get a consistent metadata image for all the data blocks, it takes for its active node and makes available. The journal node will allow only active name node to be writer, because if 2 people write, there will be conflict, and that's why they are makes you available. The write is coherent and consistent, and it's on failover, one of the name node would become. So how does the switch over of active, when active goes down, the standby node comes over? It is provided by what is called a zookeeper service. But do understand, the standby node is for efficient management of metadata. Standby node is not for the secondary name node. The HA part is available provided by standby node, which is not the secondary name node. So normally get confused primary and secondary. Its secondary does not mean backup to give you the, when main goes down, it is the standby node which takes over a main node when goes down. Job of secondary, we'll discuss shortly, is to give you efficient management of the metadata namespace or metadata information about the files. So Zookeeper is a Apache service, Apache product, which basically monitors all the nodes. It informs, detects failure. Once it detects failure, it indicates, informs all the clients of changes, monitor the clients and informs, and decides upon which new name node to take over, and basically helps enable upon the failover. So Zookeeper is a service. That means name nodes themselves among standby, and this they don't have to communicate. Zookeeper takes care of it, and that enables easy switchover. So those who like to implement any HS service, I would recommend to read over Zookeeper. How does that really works? Other part is the federation, meaning you can have multiple file namespace, so multiple name nodes. Each name node is responsible for its own namespace, and we'll talk about what that basically means. That means one name node could serve mount point /1/2, like /home could be on the by one name node, /data could be another name node, /opt file system point could be third name node, and so on and so forth. So what basically this gives you scalability, because the clients that writing into the, let's say /data1 could talk to name node server1, and the clients who wants to write to mount point /data2 could connect to name node 2, and this way, because load is distributed, you get scalability, and that's the benefit. Your name node federation, meaning multiple name nodes supporting different file system mount points or access points, they provide scalability and better performance. So if you want to look at architecture wise, you probably would have, let's say, 4 data nodes. There were 2 name nodes. Name node once has a file system point called /research, /marketing. Again, the diagram is taken from the book. Second name node will support the /data/project. So both the name nodes communicates with data node. So name node 1 will communicate all the fair nodes for its own file system research. It only note, because you are writing only blocks, and name node maintain the metadata file name space. So the data nodes only keep the blocks IDs, but the actual file distribution maintain name node. So both the name nodes can use the same data node. Does not mean they have different data nodes, but because they are dealing with actual blocks, so name would say write this data. It could be block 1, block 3 for name node 1, block 2, block 4 could be name node 2, and so on and so forth. And these 2 name nodes or multiple name nodes do not talk to each other because they're managing their own separate space. So there's no conflict there. Name node 1 works with their own file system space. Name node 2 works with their own file system space. So there's no conflict and work beautifully fine. And these nodes do not communicate with each other, but data nodes communicate to both the name nodes. The way the backup works is basically, all the metadata is stored in a file called fsimage, and now that is where the secondary name node also comes into the play. So basically, as you said, once file system starts, all data is in a memory, and any new updates are written, any appends are done, they're written into edit log files. At the start time, as you said, in safe mode, name node reads the data from fsimage, reads all data from all the edit logs, and keep a consistent view of all the data file systems available. Now, any new write happens, that is written to the edit logs. That is where the job of secondary name node comes in. Secondary name node get the edit logs from the journal nodes and merges these edits into the fsimage. Since we are talking of large number of clusters, large number of files, if this activity is to be done by main node, it may be too much overhead for the name node. So system supports a different name node called secondary name node, whose primary job is to read the edit logs, whatever is written from the journal nodes, and merge into this fsimage and provide this updated fsimage to name node. And this name node, next time it starts, it will take the updated FS image so that its start time could be shorter. So job of secondary name node is to basically keep updating the FS image by merging all the edit logs from the journal nodes and keep providing update to the main active name node so that next time you shut down and start, your FS remains up to date. And this is the extensive job. And if this were to be done by main active node, it could cause a load issue. Hence, this job is done by separate. And that is how the basically the checkpointing and backup works. Checkpointing is typically done by snapshot. A snapshot meaning you are not taking a backup of the data. And all that you are doing is a snapshot means you are taking the backup of the metadata. That basically means whatever the metadata maintained by the name node, that which files are distributed on which data node and which data is replicated where, you're taking a snapshot of only that. And that's a very small information. Taking a backup of data would be huge. We don't need a backup of data per se because we are maintaining a replication factor. So even if one data node crashes, data is still available because the replication of other nodes. So don't really need a backup of data, but we need a backup of FS image or the current metadata of the file system. And that is what basically snapshot provides you. So it acts as a backup, and once system recovers, it works as disaster recovery because you have all the information of metadata, that which data is available where, with replication factors. In case of crashes, you can take from the snapshot a checkpoint, resume from there. So rather than reading from old FS image and all the edit logs, you can read from the last snapshot, and efficiently you can start from the disaster recovery. And the snapshot creation is instantaneous because even though data is a large petabytes, your FS image would be very small, a few megabytes. So a snapshot becomes much easier, it's very, very quick. And that way it gives you much easier access to the replicated failure case recovery. Again, remember, a snapshot does not mean copying data blocks. It only means you're copying the metadata. That is, you only recording which disk block, which blocks of the files are available on which data nodes and where it is replicated, nothing else. The NFS, as I said, is a mechanism where you enables a remote file system available on a network as a local file system. So even HDFS file system as a cluster could be available as a local file system on point to a node, and that is what is called provided by HDFS NFS gateway. So using NFS protocol, the HDFS file system could be mounted as a local file system, like you're mounting a cloud drive as a Z drive. You write to Z drive, copy to Z drive, operation actually happens on the network. But from application perspective, you are writing locally to file system. It may be slow, but it remains transparent to how it is written. Same way, NFS called network file system enables the whole HDFS file system available locally as a local file system to you. And when you write to local file system, you're actually written with HDFS with all the application factors. But from application perspective, it becomes an NFS file system. And that gives you much easy access for a client to deal with. Otherwise, the client has to talk to name node server, get the nodes, then write to the data nodes and do the work. Of course, there are APIs available, but with HDFS available as local mount point, as the NFS mechanism, it becomes much easier, seamless operation of clients to write the data. So with this local file system on point, using NFS, clients can directly write to the HDFS stream and all the replication factors taken care of by this NFS gateway. Because HDFS supports only append, so you cannot update a file, say add it and update the records. You can only append, so that's the limitation. So NFS mount system will not allow you write, to allow only append operation, but no edit and update operations. And again, random write would require some kind of edit. It won't support that either. So coming to the end of our HDFS features, we basically looked at the Google file system, and HDFS took all the design concept from Google file system. Then we look at the block replication, that for different data nodes, different blocks would be at different places with replication factors. All the data would not be available on a single node. It would be distributed, and replication would be again distributed separately. And we took the example of 8 data nodes with 5 blocks, the 3 replication factor. So you can work out your own replication mechanism, and that should be fine. Then we look at the features and the nomenclature, like name node, data node, slave node, secondary name node. So for high availability name node, we have a active name node, a standby name node, but secondary name node only works with metadata, updating FS image from edit log and providing that access. And we also just looked at high availability where standby node is used in case of the active name node crashes. And we also look at the name federation where different name nodes can deal with different file system points. And lastly, we look at the snapshots and checkpointing. You take a snapshot of metadata and copy your backup data, or the actual data is not taken, only the metadata is taken. So this brings to the end. So in case any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we are done for the lecture today. So let me any questions, and probably next lecture, we would look at the HDFS commands. Those who haven't tried installing HDFS system, Hadoop system, again request you to start